Hey guys, so we need to deploy our app to run on Heroku now. We've already created a MongoDB instance using MongoDB Atlas in order to run our app locally. However, this is not going to work for us to run on Heroku. And the reason is that we haven't whitelisted the IP address correctly for that. Heroku is a Heroku is a way of deploying an app that we are going to use for rapid prototyping, MVP, your personal projects, that type of thing. It's not something you would necessarily recommend for using for professional projects. One of the reasons for that is that the servers on Heroku go to sleep if you don't use them for a certain amount of time, which means that your loading time for your app becomes something around 10, 12, 15 seconds. As we all know, a user will not wait that long for an app to load. So it is not in your interest to use it for that type of project. However, for your own personal projects and that type of thing, portfolio, etc., it is a common go-to to use it. However, we need to change our cloud atlas for this. So if you go back to your atlas and you have your cluster created already as before, we need to change the piece where it says network access. Here we've whitelisted our own IP address, which is our own computer here. However, as I was going to say, Heroku uses dynamic IP addresses. So we need to choose here, allow access from anywhere. This is one way and probably the easiest way to do it. I'm not sure that it is the most secure way, to be honest, but while this takes a bit of time, if you want to investigate other ways of hooking it up, I would suggest you go to the Configure Atlas API access in the MongoDB documentation, and it will show you how to hook it up in perhaps a more secure way. But for right now, for our purposes, we can hook it up using this and it should suffice. If you get some kind of hacking, then of course you can bring the site down, either completely delete the site or take it off of the internet. So we're just waiting here. I'm going to pause until this ends. Okay, so we get this message when our new IP address has been added. We've added it here. You could have deleted this one as well. We can, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to delete it. Why not? And now we can go and hopefully you've signed up for Heroku, so we can go and log into Heroku. Here we go. So ignore this up here. This is because there are things that are changing with Heroku that I have not updated for other projects. However, I am going to create now, if you look in the upper right hand corner, a new project. This will create a new app on Heroku. And I'm going to name my app online or OShop2. No, actually. So in Heroku, no two apps can have the same name in all of Heroku, not just in your piece of Heroku. So I tend to lead off with my handle. You can find your own naming convention, but I'm going to say JD Richards Tech -OShop2 -deploy. My region is going to be the United States right now. I don't need to add a pipeline. I'm just going to create the app. And voila, we've created an app. Now, there's a lot more to do than just creating the app, but that piece is done for now. So we need to hook up a remote. The way that we hook up a remote for GitHub, we need to do the same thing. You'll find that Heroku and GitHub have a lot of similarities, and they can intertwine. In our case, we are going to directly use the Heroku remote. So I am first going to have to create, which I have not done here, so I'm going to remove my Git from this and start over for you. Hopefully this will go fast. That was incorrect. It's .rm-rf.git. It should be that. Okay, so we need to initialize Git like that. If it's not initialized for you, I'm going to add all of my files. So that's what that dot is for. You should know this by now. Let's make sure we do our first commit, initial commit. And all of those files should be staged, and that's it for now. In our get ignore, if you remember, we had images if you were using this file before. So I'm going to remove that images because I want my images to upload to Heroku. Now, Heroku is not always the best with holding images, and they say so in their documentation, which you should read. However, it seems to work with this project, so we're going to continue that way. As far as dependencies, we don't have dev dependencies. But if you remember, we used to have dev dependencies, and they don't matter here because Heroku will get rid of them when we upload to Heroku. It's part of what they do. So now we need to add a remote. This remote is going to be found on the same page that we were on after we set up our app in the deploy section here. We scroll down. It says create a new Git repository. We've already done that. But here we create the remote for it. So I copy this and I paste it here. It may take a few seconds, but now my remote has been created. And now, just like we push in GitHub with git push origin master, in Heroku we say git push Heroku master. But you only want to do this when you want it to go to this server, because if you make changes here, it's going to break your app online. It's going to be public. Okay? So here, git push Heroku master, and this is going to take a bit of time. It's going to take a little bit of time. It always does every single time you do it. So only push when you are sure that your app is working. You will be able to check your app locally still. Make sure it's working locally and make sure you are definitely ready to push. It's trickier to remove if you don't. So let's see how we're doing here. We're at 50%. Especially the first time, it takes a while, but just know it will take this type of time almost every time. Get used to it. And just so you know, while we're waiting here and watching as well, this is not all we need to do. This is the next step, but we still have to configure a few more things before we are ready to use our app or see our app deployed online. So here, when you see build succeeded, that's always a good sign. There is a limit, if you look in the documentation, to how large everything can be. In our case, we're not anywhere close. This right here will be the address for visiting our app, but we aren't ready, as I said, to see the app, and it's only going to fail if we try to do that right now. So now that we are back in Heroku, everything has been pushed to Heroku, we still need to set up a few things, and that is our, if we click on settings, we'll see our app name, config vars, reveal config vars. I'm going to click on that. So these are our config variables. They are the same as our environment variables in the app that we have already. We need to store those on Heroku so Heroku knows what to look for, our database and our session secret. So when we click on that, we see key value, and that's where we place our key and our value. I'm going to do the Mongo first. You may have some liberty in what you name this now. Heroku usually looked specifically for this key. You may try it. If it doesn't work, go back to using this key. And then it's going to look for our Mongo Atlas, the cloud portion of the cloud version of our database here. So I'm going to add that. And I'm also going to add my session secret, since this is what I named the variable in the app that I created. And this piece does not matter. Any random string will do. That's all we need right now. SSL can come later when you're deploying something that you're going to really use. This lets you know where your app can be found. Let me make sure I add this here. And then from there, I wanted to take a look at what else before I take a look at the app. Well, I'm going to take a look at the app and see if it's running. So if it's running, I should see it all pop up. That would be the best thing. If it doesn't, you're going to see something called error, and the page isn't going to show. So you're going to know something's wrong. So there's nothing in my database right now. but I am going to register. Oh, yes, there is, because we're on the cloud and we registered in the cloud. So I think I registered with my usual handle and this. Nope. I don't remember. Oh, was it JDR? I don't remember what that login was. Yeah, so I'm going to register again just to make sure it works. jd@me.com. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There we go. And I see hello JD. So it is working. I'm going to create a category. Let's see. Oh, right. I changed this database before. You may have something still in yours. I had to change mine before I did this video. So I'm going to go back and do shoes again. It's going to add to my database. If I click on categories and look at shoes, if you remember from the last Mongo Atlas video, I don't have a cart. That's not the project I'm using. So this is all working so far. And most importantly, it is working online. I didn't scroll up to URL, but if the URL is actually online, not from my local. And I'm going to go back to my MongoDB Atlas, and if you'll remember, we could always check collections. I'm going to go to my collections and see if anything updated. It can take a while. That's one of the reasons I didn't use Mongo Atlas. Also, the internet at CIM when we were in Times Square is bad, so it would have been a headache and was a headache to use Atlas. That's why I use a local. And it is still taking its time, but here we go. So now I have my category shoes again. I have my user JD. I'll do it one more time just to prove that everything did change as expected. I'll add perhaps one more user. I'll log out here. I'm gonna add Marsha. feed.com 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's Marsha. I'm gonna go back to my database. I am going to, do I want to reset? No, but I will just refresh. It's gonna look again, and now we should see JD, and we also see Marsha. So it is actually coming from Heroku. A few other things that you want to look at inside of Heroku is that on this same page, you can take this offline by clicking this button here. We're still in settings. If you want to click maintenance off, mode is off, that's fine, and then it will take it offline so that people won't be able to look at it while you're working on it. That's possible. You can add custom domains. You can learn that as you go. You can delete the app here as well. Let's see what else there was. You can add a partner. Here you can add a collaborator, and what that will do, you can give them rights, and it will allow you to work on a project together when you get to partner apps next term. You won't be doing that this term, but next term. You also can see an activity feed of everything that you've done in your activity. This is like a log, but it's a GUI of a log. You can also see it in the terminal, but this is the GUI of it, and you see roll back to here, view, build, etc. With that, you can look at metrics, which I am not going to go through. Deploy, we did. Resources, we don't need that now. That comes into play more when you're going to use a paid version of Heroku, which you can do. I am using one for something else, and that will affect your app not going to sleep, which is a good thing, and other things like you sign up for your SSL certificate, etc., which you can investigate later. It's something that you will use when you're ready to use a paid version. It's not expensive either. I think I pay about $10 a month for it or something like that. And this is my activity. Now, anytime you make a change, as I said, you're really going to want to be careful when you make a change and push to Heroku. You can also use your GitHub and push to GitHub. For this project, you'll be doing both, because at the end of the day, you will have this project up on GitHub as well. You have something you can check when you have issues called Heroku logs, and it's going to work like Git logs, where it shows you everything that's happened based on your pushes. You can also use something which when you get that error page you will see called Heroku logs -- tail. It's going to show you the last commit basically. The other thing that you need to look at is each time that you want to commit to Heroku, you need to first do your git add as you would for any other git. You need to do your git commit -m with a message, and then after that you have to remember to do git push Heroku logs. You have to do a separate push if you're going to push to GitHub. It will not push to both using that. You can also notice that if you use git remote and you want to check your remote, you're going to see here that now you do have a remote for Heroku. It states it here, so it shows that you are connected to Heroku. Okay, that should be enough to get you up and running. Any other questions we can investigate in class. All right, good luck.